Good. Very good. What are sanctions? What are sanctions?
Restrictions imposed by one government or group of governments on another government or country.
Good. Very good. Who's North Korea's best friend? Thank you.
China,
And who else?
Russia,
Who else?
Iran.
Iran. Most definitely. Okay. I say best friend because I think it helps us understand a bit more. When I say alliance, it's the same thing. It's just a formal way of me saying it. Iran is an alliance of North Korea, or we could say they're the best friends, or however you want to term it. But yes, we have sanctions against Iran. Okay, Iran has the same thing, that they are trying to make nuclear weapons, and we have told them to not do that. Supposedly, it's for scientific research purposes, but I doubt that's really the case because we have beef, in other words, with them. So one of the things that we are doing to prevent them from continuing nuclear weapons is by imposing sanctions on them. Iran's way of making money is basically by their oil. They're very profitable in their oil and also considered to be a powerhouse in the Middle East. Another thing, too, they also have natural gas, which is another nice resource to have as well. But oil is one of the things that makes their economy flourish. So what we have done is the U.S. and the European Union have basically told Iran to basically cut their oil exports. And so now, since they're unable to freely exchange oil as they used to be, it now gives this China the incentive to take over. Now, since Iran can't do that anymore, now China is actually stepping in and being that importer of oil because Iran has a sanction against them. So I have here that Beijing is the largest importer of Iranian oil, and they account for almost 20% of all shipments from Tehran. And I have this little graph right here, this little picture. And basically, Goldman Sachs, as you know, is an investment firm, and they have forecasted that China will become the world's largest importer for oil within the next 2 years. Now, as you can see, this is a few years old. But as you can see, China does get a majority of that oil, especially when it comes from that area. So now China is basically being profitable and making money by exchanging oil, and buying those resources is up. So what about Iran's issue with Israel? What's their relationship like?
They want to wipe them off the face of the planet.
Okay, why?
Holy wars and just religion's tensions have been there for centuries.
Very unfortunate. Yeah, it's a deep-rooted conflict, and we'll talk about that a little bit more. But yes, so Iran and Israel don't get along, right? So now Israel and the U.S. are friends, right? They're allies, in other words. So if something were to happen to Israel, we would go and back up Israel, most definitely, right? So why don't we take a look at some video clips about the sanctions in Iran, so you get a good, really visual. I wanted to point this out. Foreign policy. So if any of you are interested and you want to learn more about this, they have a lot of issues that they talk about. It's very interesting, and I hope this class has made you even more interested in international politics. And if it has, foreignpolicy.com is a good website to take a look at. And I know there's a link here that they also offer. They have a jobs site, like a jobs link. So Foreign Policy does have a jobs link. I couldn't find it right now, but if you Google it, they also have jobs postings as well. So that's Foreign Policy, and they do great work. And they're based in D.C. So why don't we take a look at the UN, because as you know, the UN is a very important player when it comes to sanctions, because they're the ones that approve it, and we talked about the UN on Tuesday. So why don't we take a look at the sanctions?
Raise your hands, the Security Council was told, and they voted in measures that took months to negotiate, and which were diluted to get the support of Russia and China. Turkey and Brazil, who opened their own talks with Iran, voted against. They said a fourth round of sanctions would be wrong and dangerous.
Best experience.
They're not doing anything other than just pissing off the people who, in general, they don't really like their government that much from what I know, you know?
Very true. And you know what? There's actually going to be a presidential election coming up very soon in Iran, because he's already termed. Yeah. So he's already going to term out the president, the Iranian president. I can't pronounce his last name.
It's still, you have, Mahmoud Ahmadinejad is the president, but then you have the Ayatollah Khamenei, who's the ultimate leader there. So it really doesn't matter because, the Ayatollah, it's a monarchy basically. He could basically say he doesn't like that president, he can do something else if he wants to.
Okay, that's a good point about the supreme leader. I have a colleague of mine who's from Iran, and he was telling me that they should be already announcing the next person who's going to take that office if they do decide to go that route. So we should probably hear something in the news within the next few weeks, and it would actually bring more attention to Iran than about what's going on in the news about North Korea. So it'd be very interesting if he stays in power, or if they elect someone from that, that regime. Or if they try to put somebody from a westernized background. Now, in 2009, some years ago, he was up for re-election, and there was like a massive protest. And they were saying that the campaign was rigged. There was a rumor going out saying that the Iranian president, the current president, had and his backers had given out 2 million invisible pins, so that when they would go to the ballot and they would vote, it would erase for the other person. So there was a rumor about that, and when people went to go protest, the Basijis basically had the green light. The Basijis is the military in Iran, had the green light to basically shoot at the people who were protesting. And one of the people who was killed in that protest, she What do you think about, do you think it's true that they are making nuclear weapons?
Honestly, I don't think so.
Okay.
It could be possible,
Okay.
but I don't think so at all.
Okay. Because that president, he's like really smart. His background is he was an engineer. He has a PhD. And he basically supported that regime, the supreme leader's regime. And when he did that after the revolution, he basically built his political career up. He basically built himself up until eventually he got to be president of Iran. Yes?
Again, I question that even if Iran has the capability and actually does develop a nuclear bomb, where do they actually use it? Because it's like the same idea in North Korea. If they use it on someone around them, it's the same thing that now the retaliation would be not, or even just as worse. Because necessarily if Israel has it, then they can use it on themselves, and then you have Iran itself being bombed by a nuclear weapon, as well as Israel. And again, who would want to back a country that launched a nuclear weapon on what would be primarily a civilian population base?
Okay, good. Thank you. Yes?
Well, Netanyahu is the Prime Minister of Israel.
Mm-hmm.
Prime Minister? He drew that nice little cartoon picture of the bomb that looked like it was from Roadrunner with the red line on it. Do you remember this one?
No, I didn't see it.
He had a press conference and he brought out a whiteboard, and it was a cartoon of a bomb with a fuse, and it had a red line basically saying that right now Iran's here. If they cross this red line, we'll go after them. The fact is, if they are doing it, it's really hard to know. I mean, supposedly we have CIA operatives in the country, thwarting that, but who knows at that point,
Good. Thank you. Yes,
Are there
Chrislyn?
other countries that are developing nuclear arms?
Yes, there are. There are.
Are we trying to get them to stop as well?
That's a good question. So we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens.
Do you know who they are?
Yeah, Pakistan has nuclear weapons. From my understanding, India has nuclear weapons. Iran has nuclear weapons, or supposedly they don't, but however you look at that. North Korea has nuclear weapons. Russia has nuclear weapons. The U.S. has nuclear weapons, and I know I'm missing another country.
They're trying to stop them from having it.
Britain, yeah. Yeah. Yeah, and I think I'm missing probably another country besides that. But I actually have a graph of it, so yeah. those are the top ones. And the reason, if you come to think about it, we were actually the first country to have nukes, in other words, nuclear weapons. Okay, so once we had them, I guess you could say everybody else wanted them, you know, because I guess they're cool, in other words. A nice form of defense is what they perceive. But to just bring this all into perspective, we were actually the first country to have nuclear weapons. And then after that, you could think about the Cold War and then the arms race and all that stuff. Yes?
Kind of just answer my question. I mean, you're talking about all these countries that have nuclear weaponry. But what was the main purpose that we have nuclear weaponry? For like defense? Or is it just to have, like, just say you have one just in case, like you want to attack people that have nuclear?
Originally, it's for defense because we used them, right? And then after that, we were building up just in case if we were going to go to war with the Soviet Union at that time, which is now Russia. So we still have those weapons from that time. And now there's a non-proliferation treaty that was renegotiated from like the SALT treaties that says that foreign policy. Now, one of the questions I wanted to ask you is, do you think the bombings on Hiroshima and Nagasaki in Japan during World War II, do you think that was necessary to stop the war? What are your thoughts on that? Yes?
I mean, it's probably a bad thing to say, but I say yes, just for the simple fact that we can easily say, was it necessary on our part? Was it necessary for them to fly planes into Pearl Harbor to prove a point? So it's like, it's just a catch-22. So, I mean, if you get me, I'm going to get you back. So, just, if you decide to get you back harder, then you're going to use that. So, I think it's really necessary.
Okay, so yes. Okay, thank you.
The fact is, it unequivocally ended the war, and a lot of Japanese died. But if we didn't do it with that, we would have to send troops. And even if it wasn't the same number of deaths, it would have been American deaths. I'm not saying one country is better than the other, but in a war, you try to kill more of them than they kill them.
Of course. And also, too, if we think about the mentality of the Japanese at that time, like, right, with the kamikaze pilots, their mentality was like all out, right? It was all or nothing. So they were going to do what they had to do to win in this war. So, you know, maybe we could say, yeah, it was necessary to drop this bomb, because if we didn't, this war could have went on for, you know, more years. But just to think about this question is if any of you decide to pursue federal government in the future as a career, depending on what agency you apply to, they may ask you this question. So just FYI, they may ask you, what are your thoughts? Because they want to see where you're at on this issue when it comes to dropping bombs on another country. But talking about nuclear weapons, do you think it's okay? Is it appropriate for us to tell another country that they can't have weapons when we have weapons? What are your thoughts on that?
The world would be a better place if, when we first started,
Did you have a comment?
Yeah, I mean, I feel as if like we can't. I feel as if they have the means and the brain behind to make their own weapons, and by all means, make their own weapons. If you're a sovereign country, you have the right to do what you want to do,
Okay.
as long as it's not threatening another country. But I mean,
Okay. Thank you. Yes.
The world would be a safer place, and actually, economy professor said this to us. If right when nuclear weapons were first developed, if it was just us and Russia that had them, and we went to the rest of the world and said, this was good the Cold War world, no one else can have nuclear weapons, and we're going to send our personnel to make sure you don't have nuclear weapons, and we enforce that, and to this day there's only 2 countries that have nuclear weapons, it would be a much safer place. We wouldn't have to worry about missing nukes or smuggled nukes or anything like that.
Okay. Good. Good. Anybody else about this, about nuclear weapons? Okay. All right. So moving on. Let's talk about another country. Let's talk about Colombia very briefly. You can find this in your reader. We, the U.S., have given Colombia $1.3 billion for a program called Plan Colombia. Now, what does Colombia do, or what does Colombia have that they shouldn't do? Yeah. Oh, the coffee is really good, though. So they really think it's the cocaine, right? So Colombia has the manufacturing machines to make powder cocaine, right? If we think about Latin America, that's going to be a problem. So there's 3 groups. You may have heard of them in the past. The first one is the Revolutionary Armed Forces of Colombia, also known as FARC. Okay, there are 18,000 drug finance insurgent group. The next one is the United Self-Defense Group of Colombia, the AUC. And lastly, you got the National Liberation Army, the ELN, that has about 35 to 5,000 members. And these 3 groups are actually listed on the U.S. State Department's list of terrorists. So we consider them as terrorist groups, okay? It's on the State Department. Now, we are giving them money so they can fight back these people, right? Now, the interesting thing about these groups is that besides like killing and whatnot, they also engage in kidnapping, extorting, assassinations, and they really direct this type of crime towards elected officials. So if anyone's in elected office, like if it's a mayor or a senator or a presidential candidate, it could be cops, soldiers, anything that is affiliated with the government or even its offices, they try to basically, damage those areas. And one of the things I wanted to note is that Colombia is actually the third largest recipient of foreign aid. So after one of the main ones are Israel. Israel receives a lot of our money, a lot of our foreign aid for various reasons, for their defense, basically. And Egypt, and after that is Colombia. So those are the countries that receive a lot of the U.S. money. And you may think, okay, well, how can we go ahead and give countries money when we're in debt, right? So how can we do that, right? Well, how can we just say, okay, I'm going to give you $1 billion, give you another $1 billion, and and it's interesting how that happens. I'm not sure how they do that, but I'm not sure how they come up with the extra money to give another country money when we are in $1 trillion deficit. But in order to
They're sold on the market.
yes, very good. Okay, so do you think Plan Colombia is a good foreign policy?
No, I don't think this, because it's kind of like going after the wrong end of the problem. Problem is that people want to use the cocaine here in America. So what, so what, right? How come they can't use the cocaine? I mean, I know it's supposed to be illegal, but alcohol is more dangerous than any drug, and it is a legal drug. So I think they're going on the wrong end of the problem. Maybe they should consider making it a legal drug, and they wouldn't have this kind of issue.
That's very interesting. Thank you.
Because obviously they want to use the cocaine.
Yeah. And cocaine's not cheap. It's expensive, right? it's an expensive drug. Yeah, I don't get high, but it's an expensive drug. It's one of those drugs that are
connected with it being illegal, is what I'm saying.
Mhm.
That can go away if you just decide to use it like alcohol. If you want to use it, that's your business.
okay. All right. Yes.
Yeah, the war on drugs started by Reagan and still continues to this day, I think is the worst policy decision ever made in America, because we're going after it as a crime and defense and not as a health issue, which it is a health issue. My personal opinion is you legalize everything, you give it to the pharmaceuticals, you only allow domestic sale and production of it. And when you do that, if you cut the purse strings, because you can fight them, or you can just cut off their income. And if you cut off their income, if they can't make money, well, they can't exist. And so if you privatize the drugs here, and you make them legal, and you sell them, at the 7-Eleven and the pharmacies, and get high at your own risk type thing, people aren't going to buy it from the street dealer. They're not going to deal with the mafiosos. They're not going to go through the cartels, and that whole supply chain is going to go out of business.
Okay. What about, because that makes me think about marijuana, because that's what they're doing with marijuana, right? Does anybody here smoke marijuana and have a card? Huh? Do you have a medical card?
No, my friend does.
Your friend does? Okay. All right. So does your friend now, I guess, buy her or his weed supply from a clinic instead of buying it from, I guess, the weed man, in other words? Okay. Okay. So yes.
So much safer.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I would rather go into a store in Long Beach, air conditioning, all these choices, than go get it from the guy in the corner and basically give me your money, this is what you get, And when it's drugs are not a crime issue. They're a mental health issue. They're an overall health issue. And you got to treat that and not attack it like you're going to declare war on it. You're declaring war on what? A substance? It's just stupid.
Very good point. Thank you. Did you have a comment? You had a comment? Okay. All right. Any other comments about drugs and drug trafficking? Okay. Very interesting stuff. Okay. So, excuse me, Jose?
No, because I was just in Long Beach yesterday and it's just over there.
Oh.
Yeah, I see them on my way to work. I see like 4.
Oh, okay. I actually was at Venice Beach not that long ago. And Venice Beach, if you have gone or have gone recently, there's a bunch of little shops there, and there's places where you can buy your stuff and whatnot. It's very interesting. So anyhow, why don't we talk about the roots of conflict in Israel and Palestine? Because the Israel and Palestine issue is like super complicated. In other words, it's like really complicated. Okay, really good point. Talking about this conflict, as you can see and as I mentioned, it's very complicated. There's a lot of historical aspects to this that I wouldn't go ahead and explain. I think it's better for you to see a visual of it so you could really understand the historical aspects of what has happened in this area and why there's such deep resentment and why they keep still fighting to this very day and why they still have, they don't like each other, in other words. One of the things I wanted to point out was that the Palestinians have initiated like terrorist groups, right? They had talked about the PLO in the video, and the PLO, as you had seen, did blow up some planes, but actually with the planes, with not the people on them, they'll take the people off and then they'll blow up the plane. And one of the things I wanted to note is, in the PLO, they actually had women in that organization, and Layla Khalid was one of the first female women terrorists who initiated that. So I just wanted to bring that up so you know where that came from, because it came from the PLO. Another organization that was also created is Hamas, and Hamas is considered to be a terrorist group, but they're also their own political party as well, and from that area, and trying to regain that part of the land. So basically fighting over land. Okay, just fighting over land, basically what it comes down to. Okay, so I just have a visual here. Let me take a look at that. And one of the things I just wanted to go over for the next few slides, and we'll wrap up, is that leadership is really based on various factors of what their political style is, how they view the world, right? What their attitude is, and if they have any type of training. So, for instance, if we take a look at North Korea's leader, Kim Jong-un, right? He's young, right? He's what, 30 years old, supposedly estimated 29, 30, 31, around that age frame, right? He inherited that position from his family. And so we're not sure where he's at, right? So we're not.
All like basketball.
Okay.
That's what Dennis Rodman had to say about that.
Very, very, very funny. Now, another thing I wanted to point out too is whenever a leadership, whatever president, comes into leadership, you got to think about the policies that person's going to pursue, right? So, for instance, George Bush, what type of policies did he pursue when he was our president? Okay, good. You want to, very good. Anybody else?
Low taxes, more of a hands-off regulatory system, deregulation. Well, Clinton deregulates the banks, but further than that, was against any regulation of any industry.
Okay.
Pro-oil.
All right, good. And also, if you were in the military, you had there was a post-GI Bill, I believe, that also helped benefit the people who were in the military for like housing and schooling and all that. So there was additional benefits. So he catered a lot to the defense, anyone who was in the Defense Department. What else? What else did President Bush's policies, what else were they on?
War on terror.
Okay, war on terror. Okay, that was mentioned. Yes?
There was something in education.
Yeah, most definitely. The No Child Left Behind Act, right? There was a lot of money for that, right? Okay, however you perceive that.
Success.
Right? Okay. Now, what about Obama? What are Obama's policies? What did he do?
Healthcare, Obamacare.
Okay, Affordable Health Care Act. Okay, good. What else?
He's actually increased the drone specs.
Okay.
He said he was going to close Guantanamo, but that's still not happening.
Yeah. Okay. Now, what about taking out Osama? What about that?
So, actually, I was listening to a piece, and it was saying that George Bush had a dilemma of capturing terrorists and what to do with them after capturing them. Obama solved the problem by just kill them first. And you don't have to deal with the captured terrorists, just kill them. And so that's what they've been doing, is just don't capture them, just kill them.
Mm-hmm.
Which I thought avoids the problem.
Okay, good. What about Gaddafi? What about that? What about that incident? Taking out a dictator.
Well, we didn't take him out, we just provided support.
Of course.
let them take it out.
Yeah, but we provided the support to make that happen, to get him out. Okay, so just want you to just keep that in mind, that each leader has their own policies that they work on, and especially one of them is foreign policy. Now, I'm not sure if I have this one in the reader, but I just wanted to show this to you, is that we hope that when people make decisions, that they have rational, they're rational thinkers, and they also have complete information to do that. But in reality, that doesn't happen. The information that they get is incomplete, right? It's very incomplete. It's very distorted. So, for instance, if we rely on the CIA to get us information, is that information complete?
Just listen to another one saying the CIA is more like the military like the CIA, because the CIA has a directive from Cheney back in 9/11 to capture, kill. For a long time, they were just on intelligence gathering. Now they moved to more of a hunter-killer agency, or quasi-military agency, and this is one of the reasons why they really miss the